All right, everybody, let's start heading back to our seats. Come on, come on, come on. All right, everybody, we're about 1 minute to go in live. Please head on back to your seats.
You do? That's your. Hello. All right, here we are back. It's 3:30. I have one general service announcement I guess I need to make. There's a ropes course here. Did anybody know that? 2 of you did. A ropes course. Well, there's 2 gentlemen in here that want partners for the ropes course because apparently you have to do it in groups and you have to make a reservation. So they're asking me to ask you, if you're interested, to please identify yourself. There's one of them right there. Find these 2 guys.
Okay. So I don't get in trouble, James Stark from the New York District. Thank you. So, nice to meet you, Phil. Out in the hallway, there's a frame with a bunch of pictures of this ropes course. It looks pretty cool. It has ropes and zip lines and all sorts of fun stuff. So I have a call into the person that it says you have to call to organize it. If you're interested, it seems like it's kind of a team sport. So see myself or Patrick here. And as soon as I get more information, I'll let you know. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. We'll carry on to Air Traffic Services Field Realignment. We have Bill Count here with us. He is on loan. He's actually the air traffic manager at Chicago Center. On loan to Washington, D.C. now as the program lead for realignment. And a fun fact about Bill, he likes to ride bikes apparently. He's ridden 50 miles in 33 states, and his goal is to do 50 states. Him and his wife both. Yeah. So everybody welcome Bill.
Well, good afternoon. It is good to be here. It's good to see some familiar faces and a lot of new faces. I really appreciate the invitation, Abby. We talked about this some months ago. There are so many things happening in our organization today. There are so many moving parts. And it's our job as the leaders in this organization to make this all, okay, I'm getting directed. Okay. To make this all fit together. And that's really what I want to talk about the air traffic, the field reorganization, is so that we can start that conversation about how what we're doing in air traffic services fits with all the training initiatives. I mean, I heard the question earlier, Scott, you asked the question about how we fit this with the contract. I mean, those are all things we're going to have to work out. I see we have people from the service center here. They're going through the realignment. We've got simultaneous changes happening in this organization, so it's really incumbent on us to start that dialogue and continue the dialogue so that in the end, all of this stuff meshes together, and that's really the purpose in what I want to share with you today. So we are realigning air traffic services, and this is its purpose. We basically want to create an organizational structure that mirrors the seamless service that we owe our customers. It's really about realigning the organization along our service delivery in a way that makes sense both to us and to our users. Okay, thank you. Just keep telling me. I'll knock a tooth out if I put it any closer. So I think everybody knows when we went into the ATO, you know, we started prior to that with en route and terminal in the same organization. We went to the ATO, we split that out. That was all for good reasons, but after a few years, it started to show some cracks in it. We actually realized that we had organizational impediments that were keeping parts of the organization that need to work together from doing so. So we combined terminal and en route at the headquarters level, at the service area level. And we intentionally left the field alone because we said that's where we do our mission delivery. We don't want to mess with it at this time. And yet now that's starting to show cracks. So that's really why we are going through this. Here are the objectives. We want to provide integrated oversight to both terminal and en route in a way that mirrors the service we deliver and everything else we're doing. So think where we are as an organization today. We used to have very distinct parts of this organization with terminal and en route. We had different kinds of technology. We had different procedures. Everything was different. So it made sense that we aligned along a different structure. But look where we're going. We're converging into common technology platforms. We have organizations that sort of mirror one another. We have procedures like trajectory-based operations that don't recognize necessarily those distinctions between terminal and road. So we're erasing those distinctions. And today we have an organization that creates a barrier that actually keeps us from doing that convergence, from merging those things together. So that's really our purpose in doing this. Another one of the goals was to enhance the focus on the operation. We have managers in the field, particularly in the smaller facilities, that are engaged a good part of their time in doing administrative and support work, and they really aren't focusing on the operation. We think we can do better than that. So the idea with this realignment is by sort of restructuring the way we have our support and administrative services, we can take some of that workload off of our managers and actually have air traffic managers in all the facilities at all levels more focused on the operation. And then the increased efficiency and effectiveness of support and administrative services, and that's really what we're going to focus on mostly today. This idea of combined services, of actually combining our support resources, our administrative resources, so that we can more effectively service all of our facilities. And again, we're going to focus on that because that's the piece that we are actually working on today. As we're talking about this, so people have heard the term GM concept floating around. Yeah. This is formally known as the GM concept. We sort of rebranded it for a couple of reasons. One is it's not a concept. We're actually doing this. It's not an idea anymore. And it's not about the GM. When we talked about that, everybody said, oh, the change is they're going to put a GM in charge of the combined terminal and en route. That's not what the change is. That's a tiny little piece of the change. And it focuses all the attention on that person and what that person's doing, when I think you're going to see what we're actually talking about is going to require organizational behavior change from everybody in the organization. So the reason why we sort of rebranded it as that, but it is what you probably have heard of in terms of the GM concept. We also are looking at, by combining our support and administrative resources, an opportunity to really look at internal processes and do some standardization. We're very fragmented right now. As we start to draw those resources together at the district level, we think we have an opportunity for streamlining and standardizing some of those processes. This is end state. So end state is October of 2018. It's a long way away, but this is what we're moving to. It's really pretty simple. It has a district manager at the top. Think of combining an existing terminal district and an existing en route facility under the same organizational structure. Very simply, that's what it is. Now, they don't fit, the boundaries don't fit quite like that. So the way it's actually structured is within the geographic boundaries of each center, and then we've had to sort of tweak some of the districts to be able to make that fit. But in the end, we will have a district that is composed of all of the facilities underlying each center's boundaries, with a general manager in charge of that district. We'll have a deputy general manager for operations and one for support. So for the operations, all of the air traffic managers at the center and all the underlying facilities will report to the deputy general manager for operations as well as the TMO. We have a deputy general manager for support on the right, and that's all of our support managers will report to that common entity. You will see here we have one for programs, plans and programs, one for airspace and procedures, two for training, and two for QC. The thought is eventually we may go down to just 4 support managers for each district. We don't want to do that initially because QC and training are critical to our mission delivery, and we don't want to cut resources too short there. So we may stay with this state. It may reduce to fewer support managers, but this is sort of what the plan looks like right now. And in the middle, you see this district administrative services manager. We will have a manager who's in charge of all of the delivery of all the administrative services for all of the facilities in the district. So this is end state. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to take a little time to get there. We actually do have 4 prototype or districts that are working in this structure right now. We'll talk about those in just a moment. But it does beg the question, what do we do between now and 2018? Because it's a long time. So here are our pathways to get there. And I'm just going to walk through these real quickly. You can certainly ask questions, but I'm not going to really dwell on them. The first one is business planning. People say, why are you waiting until October 2018? It's a long time. It is. And the reason is because there is a lot of work to do. And it's all this administrative stuff. You know, when I walked into the room, I heard a discussion about abbreviations and acronyms. And I realized that this group is really sensitive to that. So I just looked at my presentation. I thought, geez, I hope I didn't mess up here. And I realized I got to slide 6 before I drove off the cliff. So I apologize for that. So this is everything that's going on in the background. We actually have 9 teams in missions or in management services at headquarters that are working with us on doing things like budgets and new budget codes and position descriptions and bidding processes, all of our budgets, our success metrics, everything else, all of these business activities. This is what's happening in the background between now and 2018. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. It actually hasn't been fully approved at the agency level. I assume it'll probably have to go to the department as well, and in fact, it may even we may have to go to Congress and get some sanction from them. So just a lot of steps to go through. I'm not really going to dwell on that, other than to make the point that's why we have this gap between October in 2018 and now, and I'll explain here in a moment how we're trying to fill that. This is a lot of boxes on paper, but in the end, it is not about the technical change. It is really about the adaptive change, behavior change, doing business differently. Really, it's going to affect everybody in this organization. Out of recognition for that, we realize it's not something we just flip on to tell people, here's our new way of doing business. So we've actually engaged, we've got some contract support, we have the folks in management services and organizational effectiveness who are working with us on things like a communication plan. We have very regular telecons to talk, to give information. We're actually sending information out to managers in the field on how to deal effectively with the adaptive change and help prepare first themselves as the leaders of the organization, but in the end, all of the other people to come along with those adaptive changes. And eventually, we will get to the pieces on training and transition as well. Another one of the pathways is the prototype districts. We have 4 in Chicago, Kansas City, Boston, and Seattle. They actually are in that end state structure you saw in the first slide. The idea was to sort of test that out, to let them figure out what works, what doesn't, and capture lessons learned so that they can help inform all the other districts as they transition into this process. We communicate very regularly. In fact, the managers of those facilities are part of this management structure review team that we have at the national level. We meet on a very regular basis, to do the planning for this and to try to capture those lessons learned so that the process becomes easier for the other districts as they migrate to that new structure. So, October 2018, long time away. We got really a year and a half from the time we started this. The question is, what are we going to do between now and then? And we saw an opportunity to do things a little differently. Typically, when we do organizational change, we set up the structure, we put people in the positions, and then we say, oh, geez, how are we going to work in this new organization? Suddenly, all of our old processes don't function anymore because we broke the connections. Think of things like the stand-up at the service center. I'm not being critical here, but I think everybody knows we stood up an organization and spent some time after that trying to figure out how do we work with that new structure. And we saw an opportunity. This is a kind of novel concept. We're testing this. We'll see how this goes. To actually flip that on its head and take advantage of this time gap we have and start dealing with the behavior changes that will make us successful when we move into the end state structure. So as a result of that, what we decided to do is to start delivering combined services, basically combining all of our support and administrative resources at the district level before we actually have a district structure, and we're doing that today. We have a core team for quality control. They've actually developed some processes, a roadmap for other districts. We rolled that out in mid-June, and we're about to take on the big one, which is training in September. That's probably going to be the biggest delivery of combined services. Yes?
So we have a question. How does the proposal for ATO privatization impact your planning for the general manager concept?
That's a good question. And the answer is, don't know. I've actually had a lot of people ask, is this about one of two alternatives? One, is this preparing us for privatization? It's actually set us up in an organization that would be easier to take over in a private structure. I've actually had people ask the other question too. Was this created to prevent privatization? Is this created to be a barrier to make it more difficult? The answer is neither of the above. We actually started, in this process before the serious talk about privatization came along this year. I mean, we had the bill last year as well. Didn't make it out of the House. So it really is independent of that. I think the better question may be, how does it fit with privatization? I don't think this inhibits it. I don't think that it necessarily accelerates a move toward privatization. If we were to go that path, I'm not even sure what the future of this initiative would be, because I think likely the organizational structure in a private organization would look considerably different. There's a lot of uncertainty with privatization, right? So we could, again, sit and wait and see what happens before we make any change, or we can do what we always do, which is let's continue to move forward and adapt if we have to, if the environment changes.
What happens to extra support manager personnel if now there are 2+ between terminal and en route? Then realignment brings it down to one position.
So it raises the question about what happens with people who are displaced in this process, and somebody keyed into the support managers being one of those. Another one, if you notice, we no longer have terminal districts, right? So there won't be terminal district managers. There won't be assistant terminal district managers. So there may be some displacement. If you actually do the math, the numbers come out really pretty close. If there's a disparity, it is mostly with the support managers. And I don't know exactly how we're going to deal with that. We've been having some dialogue with HR and management services. The intent here is, to find everybody a job when we're done with this. It may not be the same job people have today. Okay? So, combined services. This is what we're going to do between now and October 2018. We're actually going to manage what we're referring to as virtual districts. So the districts as they will exist with some variations. I'll explain this real quickly, but it's really more complicated than this. There are some facilities that will have to move to a new district in October 2018 in order to be associated with the underlying center. So there are some anomalies, right? And that's why it's not necessarily a perfect fit. But in general, we will have the air traffic manager of the center and the terminal district manager working jointly together, partnering to act in the capacity of a general manager for the purpose of delivering combined support administrative services. What does that look like? If you're a terminal district manager, you have a responsibility for a facility today. You will still have responsibility for that. You will share the responsibility for delivery of support and administrative services with the air traffic manager of the center. And we actually have, the 4 prototype districts have been doing that for some time. We have all the facilities now engaged in quality control, and we will soon be taking on training. In this structure, we also have support managers partnering with their terminal and en route counterparts. So just like the ATM at the center and the terminal district manager are partnering, acting in the capacity of the general manager, we'll have support managers for terminal and en route who are working together to jointly deliver combined service in each one of those administrative and support functions. And the roadmap is very flexible. We are not trying to, we don't have a step-by-step task or function transfer from the current environment to combined services. We're really leaving it up to the districts to figure out where does that make sense, where are the opportunities for increased efficiency by combining resources, what kind of resources do they have currently available. It's going to be done very much at the district level, and those decisions that are being made today with QC and in the future as we move forward with the other functions as well. I just threw this up here because if people haven't seen it, they may want to know where they fall. This is available. We actually have a KSN site. Everybody can see it. But you can see it is, roughly speaking, one district and one center combining in these virtual districts with some anomalies, like you see Washington Center actually is combined with 2 districts. And we won't get into all the details. So you saw the end state. Yes, ma'am.
Will these support offices be staffed up to support additional workload?
So there is no intent to staff up at all. Again, what we're trying to do is make the most efficient use of our resources. Here's the best way I can explain it. If you think about taking all of our support resources, or administrative resources, think one office, think training, and we put them all into a common pool, I think you will find we have some redundancies, and we will have opportunities to be able to resolve those redundancies, which will free up additional resources. Also, by combining all of those resources, aggregating them into a pool, then you can make decisions about where you can best allocate them. So I would guess in most cases, the support staff will continue to be working in the facilities where they work today, but they may be assigned tasks or functions in support of other facilities in the district. So did that answer the question? Yes, sir.
Mark Humbert, Charlotte. I'm under the Piedmont District that's going to Jacksonville. Support manager. So will the support manager have to relocate to Jacksonville, or are they going to stay at the facility and perform those functions for the district?
So we will have a district office. I mean, the plan right now is to have the general manager, the terminal, or the deputy general manager for support and operations, and the administrative manager co-located in a location. Everybody else will be in their current facilities. Support manager will stay where they are today. Over time, that may change. I mean, as vacancies exist, At the district level, you may decide to replace somebody in a different facility. And I think there may be, over time, some emphasis on moving people into some of the higher level facilities where they can provide support for all the facilities. That's not part of the plan. I mean, at this point, we're actually looking at keeping people in place. So you saw end state. This is the organizational chart for combined services, and it's just exactly what I described here. They told me there was a button on here. Oh, there it is. Yeah. There we go. So TDM, Center ATM, partnering to jointly act in the capacity of the general manager. You have all of the OMs in the center still reporting to that combined entity. You have all of the facility, the air traffic managers of the underlying terminals all reporting to, that's really sensitive. I just won't touch it, how's that? Reporting to that combined entity. You also see you have the, all the support managers, QC, training, PNR, and airspace and procedures partnering in the delivery of combined services for their associated functions. That's what we're going to be doing for the next year and a half. Now, I will point out, when I gave you the end state structure, you probably noticed there's no such thing as a staff manager anymore in terminal and en route. There is no such thing as an XO anymore. There's no such thing as assistant terminal district manager. So we put them up here just to say, you know, we're going to find a place in this interim structure for everybody. I've already seen people are using those positions to, in effect, become the equivalent of the deputy general manager for operations and support to help provide another layer of support for the operation. Yes, sir.
How can this training community help you successfully implement this plan?
That's a really good question. So I haven't quite gotten there yet, but we are going to roll out training. We actually have a telecon tomorrow with the 4 core team districts just to talk about bringing everybody together in September. And the intent, in fact, let me just continue for a moment. I'll come back to the question and see if I've answered it, okay? Because I think you're just like one step ahead of me. So here is rollout of combined services. The big red line on the right side is October of 2018. That's when we plan to do the organizational change. And you can see prior to that, we plan to implement combined services in all 6 of the administrative and support functions. That includes both administrative functions and traffic management, in addition to the traditional support offices. We've started quality control. The methodology we're intending to use for the remaining of the functions as well. And I'll walk through this real quick. So we got everybody together, 4 districts, it happened to be the 4 prototype districts for quality control back at the end of March. And they laid out a plan and then started actually executing that plan over the next couple of months, doing some evaluation, making some changes, capturing lessons learned that they eventually rolled into what we call the QC roadmap. The QC roadmap is what went out to all of the other districts in mid-June so that they can begin that process. So we are now at that sort of early stage in all the districts. So we've got a couple of months blocked out here for districts to sort of get their transition started and then roll into the delivery of combined quality control services with the intent of, by the end of this year, by the end of 2017, fully having transitioned into combined delivery of quality control services. In September, we're going to do the same thing with training, and exactly the same methodology. We're going to bring in 4 districts. It is 4 different districts that have volunteered to take responsibility for training. They are going to map out a process to begin that transition. They're going to spend 2 months working on it themselves, hopefully gathering some good input and lessons learned that they can share with other districts before they roll that out nationwide, and then we'll just continue on. In the end, October 2018, we should have functional combined services in all 6 functional areas.
Another question came in. Who are what are the training prototype facilities?
You're just one step ahead. In fact, it's right here. So yeah, here's where we are with QC, right? QC, I told you we rolled out in mid-June. The plan is to have that fully transitioned by the end of this year. We're bringing the training core team together. It is Indianapolis Center in the Heartland District, Jacksonville Center in the Piedmont District, Miami Center at the Paradise District, and we threw in San Juan and Memphis Center and the Magnolia District. Those are the 4 virtual districts that are taking responsibilities, the core team, for developing the plan for rolling out combined services and training. We are meeting for the first time in September, and that means you can expect that we will be rolling that out nationwide in the December timeframe. This is the last one of our pathways. I put it in here just because, you know, it is a process we have to go through, our whole labor strategy with this. We continue to work this with QC. We have actually transitioned into delivery of QC combined services. We have some constraints because we haven't completed all of our briefing notification and bargaining obligations at the national level. We are continuing to do that. But we are in a state where we can function in combined services with quality control, and the same will be true when we roll out training come September. Okay. That's sort of the down and dirty version of this. Questions?
I got one.
Yep.
I'll try to wait till down. Wait for me. Darren Catania from the Central Service Center. With the realignment and boundaries and whatnot, we're looking at it from a service center perspective and the support we provide. What does that look like future state with the absorption and the merger of both terminal and center environments? Some locations may be supported by currently Western right now and others at Central right now, but a future state may have the additional workload coming to Central. So is there a map or a depiction that shows what that may look like?
I don't have a map. We have had some. It is on, okay. We have had some early dialogue about that. We do not intend to change any of the service area boundaries during the combined services phase. When we go to the end state structure, we may have to do a little bit of tweaking for the same reason I described before, because we have some terminal facilities we're going to have to draw into a different district, in some cases into a different service area, in order to keep them underneath the overlying center umbrella. So we may have some adjustments along the way. It's a good question. For another reason, I think we are. This is obviously a big change for us, and a lot of planning and a lot of significant behavioral change for everybody in our organization. We've also begun the dialogue with the service center because I know you're undergoing the transformation now. And we're both sort of changing along the way, and hopefully when we end up in some end state structure, the two things do fit together. So,
Bill, go ahead.
Hi, Jackie Jacobs from Phoenix Tricon. Along the same line as the gentleman in the front row, we are currently in the Western Service Area, transitioning to the Central Service Area. We do have at least one, perhaps more, likely a few, memorandums of guidance for certain procedures. Specifically, one would be the 2-minute overlap. So once we transition out of the Western Service Area and lose that direction from the Director of Operations, what guidance do we follow? Do we make our own facility guidance, or do we look to the Central Service Area directors?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I think it's probably going to be It's probably going to be situational. I mean, if you have, what I'm understanding is you actually have a service area level directive that you're following, right? And you're going to go from one service area to another. So I don't know if that transitions. I know the service center has made an effort to try to deliver as one entity, regardless of the boundaries. You get service center delivery, and it shouldn't make a difference if it's from Eastern or Western. And that may be the approach we take with things like this, is that there really isn't any distinction. The order would carry over, but we have not addressed that yet. Yes, sir.
Howdy, Bill. Wayne Dern from Oakland Center.
Hi, Wayne.
Okay. As I listen to this, I appreciate all the work you're doing into it. But at Oakland Center, we're already overtaxed at each position. And this is from my experience as an OM and now as a temp staff specialist. how are you going to address that if you're already overtaxed to share the resources now that you don't have?
I'm not sure how to answer that because I'm not exactly sure of your situation. I
Well,
mean, the
okay.
idea is that we would aggregate all of our resources within that district. So if you're short-staffed, you may actually be drawing on someone else's resources to do your job, right? I mean, that in theory could happen. I think in reality what's going to happen is as you start to analyze the tasks and functions that have to be done out there, you're probably going to find some things that you're doing today. You may think you're overtaxed, but that you can do with little extra effort in support of other facilities. And maybe they can take some of the things that are imposing an additional workload on you and do that for you. There's a lot of redundancy in the system that we have today. Things that we're doing, across or in multiple facilities or in multiple districts. So that's the challenge. There is no easy answer for this. It is really about sitting down and working together to figure out where we can meet make the most gain.
But that leads to another question is, what is the ultimate or the ulterior motive of why this is even happening? What was happening in the system that requires you to say we need to change it now?
We have a very uneven level of service delivery in our support and administrative functions across the system, particularly smaller terminal facilities. We have a lot of terminal facilities who get no support at all. And when we combined up the terminal districts, we thought that might help. It made some incremental progress. It really didn't get us there. I come from a center too, and we think that we may be overtaxed. I mean, I think that sometimes too. The fact is, we do have a tremendous amount of resources within the facility. So if we put that together and we have common oversight and we start really prioritizing what has to be done across the district, I think you're going to find we have the resources to be able to do that. And there may be some places where we're challenged.
Natasha Chappelle, Kansas City District. So you're probably already aware of this, but I just kind of want to mention it for everybody in the room too. One of the things with the combined services where I think we're going to run into a little bit of a problem, and it's probably a budgeting issue, but some of the smaller facilities and gaining access to their dollars so that we can actually, from the larger facility or from the shared services perspective, be able to access information for them and get some of the taskings done so that we can take that off of the ATM's plates. So where's the money coming from for that? That's the question.
That's a good question. Thank you for asking, because I actually have a good answer I think you're going to like. So, you raise dollar, but there are a lot of other systems. One of the thoughts is that we should be able to combine some of our services and deliver some services to an entire district through remote access that today we have to do because people in the facility who reside in the facility are the only ones who have access to systems. So we're starting to look at how do we open up systems. And I'll acknowledge the Kansas City District and the work that Christine had done to be able to break down some of those barriers and actually provide access. One of the things that we rolled out with QC was a guide on how to access CEDAR for other facilities. So we're working on that. Dollar is a problem, right? I actually got a request from Glenn Martin, from the Director of Air Traffic Services, about a month ago that said, is there any critical need in terms of the combined services you think that we might be able to meet if we have end-of-year funding? And that was what we put on the list. So we'll see what happens.
Thinking about joint support provided by safety and technical training, is Tech Ops doing something similar in terms of realignment?
Tech Ops is not doing something similar, and they aren't really necessarily, they're not part of this. So, at headquarters, I briefed Tech Ops on this, and they were unhappy because they looked at that chart and they said, you're trying to take us over. We see, if you look at that general manager, you see ops support, we see there's just going to be another line, there's Tech Ops, and you're just trying to take over Tech Ops. That is not true. And I actually had somebody up there to tell me, well, we've got people out in the field, and I do not believe this is true. managers who are saying, we're taking you over. We're taking over. I don't think this, I think what it is look at the chart. Just intuitively, it almost makes sense, right? We didn't include Tech Ops in this for the very simple reason that we have got our hands full with this transition. We could not, we couldn't do it with Tech Ops. Does that happen later in this concept? I mean, yeah, it may. I mean, look at that chart. It might actually make sense to bring everybody under that same organizational umbrella. But today, there is no plan. And if it ever happens, Tech Ops will be part of that process. This is not a takeover.
Bill Danabroach from CAMI. As an organizational psychologist, I like how you're pilot testing your business processes with the virtual districts, which is a great idea. But in your briefing, you mentioned culture change strategy as part of your communications and change strategy. Can you comment, what do you mean by that culture change strategy? What are you trying to change there? What part of the culture?
So, I don't want to go too deep into this, but you asked the question, and with your background, I think you know, you can't set out to change an organizational culture, right? You don't say, I'm going to change a culture. What you can change is organizational behavior, right? Organizational behavior. I mean, the culture is the values, the norms, the people's beliefs, things like that. You can't just go in and tell people you're going to believe something new. But what you can do is change organizational behavior, and that's really what we're focusing on now. How do you have to operate differently? How do different entities, people or organizations have to interact in this new world to make it function? You can see it. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of coordination. In fact, there is more coordination, interaction between different people and different organization elements in the combined services than there will be in the end state. I mean, we're sort of getting the hard part out of the way here. That is different than the way we have been brought up, where we put, we want something done, we put a manager in charge and we say, I want you to do this, and if you can't do it, I'll find somebody else who can, right? I mean, that's not this world. This is about working together, shared goals, and prioritizing things together. So that's what we're really focusing on is, what's the expected individual change? What are the organizational behavioral changes we're looking for? In the end, that's what will change the culture. Did I do well? Okay.
Okay, again, a massive shout out to whoever's sending in questions and defining the acronyms. Thank you so very, very much. So, will districts with Core 30 airports have 2 traffic management officers, TMOs?
So, I'll answer that, and then I'll expand on it a little bit. Quite possibly, yeah. We've actually identified a couple that may. The intent is to have 1 TMO per district, because again, we're trying to look at service delivery as a seamless function, right? It's not en route does something, hands off to terminal, and terminal does something else. From our user perspective, it's one seamless service stream, and that's really the focus here. So we would like to get down to 1. There are districts where we may need 2, and we've already had some of that dialogue and identified some of those. At the same time, here's where I'll expand on it. There are districts that are going to have more than 1 deputy general manager for operations. We've got some districts with lots of facilities. I think the biggest one's probably SoCal, and I think it's in the neighborhood of 40 facilities. So that wouldn't be realistic to have 1 person, to have 40 managers as direct reports for 1 DGMO. So we may have some districts. Right now the thought is the directors are talking like a 10-to-1 ratio, 10 facilities per operations, deputy general manager for operations, but there will be some with more than 1.
Hope Kabbalah, Minneapolis Center, and reference the support specialist for this realignment. So if we're adding different types of work to do in the district, is that considered change in working conditions? And what conversations have been had with NACA on being able to allow my support specialist to do that change?
Okay, so here's the current guidance on that. You can, independent of what we're doing with combined services, the support specialists have a new position description. Has everybody seen that? It came out about 2 months ago. And everybody saw it as part of this. And you know what? It was just, you know, two things that were on parallel tracks that ended up merging at one point. It was not because of this. It was actually a completely separate initiative. Under that PD, support specialists can be assigned work in support of facilities at their current level or lower. And that is current. They can do that today. So we can do combined services, right? So if you have, you know, in your Minneapolis Center, yeah, so your people could support all of the facilities in the district. If you have a level 9, they could support facilities at the level 9 and below. So we do have some constraints there. That's assignment of work. We can do this. Now, go back to the piece about communication and cultural change. We want to talk to people. We want to brief them. We want to answer their questions, all that kind of stuff. Right now, what we've told people is brief your people. Talk to the support specialist. Involve them in this. Up to the point where you're talking about things happen beyond combined services. Talk about combined services. Don't talk about end state, because the end state issues are the things that we have not completed our national bargaining obligations on. So you can assign them the work with the constraints with the PDs. You can talk to them, but only talk to them about combined services until we finish our job at the headquarters level.
What will determine if the Department of Transportation and/or Congress get involved? Can they stop your plan?
Oh yeah, I mean they'd stop at any time. So you know, organizational. Back on that business planning one, there are a lot of acronyms. There's one called the Organizational Change Team. We actually have such a thing in the FAA, and they look at major organizational changes and make sure that we've done all, you know, the steps and everything else, and then they coordinate up to the department level. And you know, the department may just approve it. They may, particularly, you know, what drives the congressional scrutiny is typically budget, and you know there can be few budget implications here, so it may not rise to that level. But who knows? You know, we got a new administration. This is all being done internally in the FAA. It obviously has some potential connection to the focus on privatization. By the time it makes it up to the department, who knows what will happen? I will tell you this: if they were to say stop doing the organizational change, we will still have combined services, and we will be a better organization for that. We will be doing business differently in a better manner, regardless of what happens in the end state.
Has any thought been given to changing the specialist to admin ratio in the facilities? A specialist can do admin duties, but not vice versa.
We have a team that is working with management services at headquarters to look at the whole other than controller workforce plan. The numbers involved in that, that includes all the administrative support functions. It also includes a review of TMU staffing requirements and frontline manager requirements. It's the whole gambit. I think we will probably be looking at that. I think the question is interesting because it's posed as support specialists could also do admin work. I think interestingly, a few years back, you know, I'm in Root, we were actually looking at shifting the other way because the administrative staff can provide service at a considerably lower cost than the support staff. In a lot of cases, you may be able to have 2 or 3 specialists where you would have a support specialist. So, you know, there is a balance to be had there, and we do have people who are looking at that plan.
Okay, if there's nothing else in the room.
I have one over here that came live from one of the chat rooms. With combined services, how will it impact our contract support? Are we filtering them out?
It will not. It should not change contract support, and I think Brian, you know, talked about this a little earlier. Contract allocations are done at the facility level, and what we're doing is basically shuffling facilities around. So their budgets may go someplace else, but it will not directly impact the facility level allocation. That may be, it may be something that causes some more work for all of us in this interim combined services state, because the facilities are still assigned to one district, and the combined services, in this case training, are being managed by another district. So again, a lot of coordination. It should not impact your end state allocation. What it will do, and I think in the end state, is give you a bigger pool of contract assets, right? They include both the center and all the terminal districts, and an opportunity to make some decisions, prioritizations across that whole scale so that, again, we meet everybody's needs. Okay? Sure.
Will the operations manager's numbers be reduced throughout the district?
There's no intent to impact operation manager numbers at all. Again, keep in mind here that one objective about focusing on the operation. I mean, we talk a lot about combined services and its impact on the delivery of support services, but the real intent is to be able to concentrate those and do a more effective job, better oversight of the support delivery so that managers at all levels can focus on our core business, on the operation.
Okay, Sherry Reese, FAA Academy. So this is brand new to me, and so my question is, when you talk about combined services and sharing resources across en route and terminal, especially at the specialist level, between en route and terminal, those are very specific qualifications. I mean, for an en route instructor, can't just go be a terminal instructor, just can't be go an en route instructor. Same with contract resources. So, I mean, you speak about it so smoothly, and no one else has asked any of these questions, so maybe I've just missed it, but how do you share that so completely when the qualifications are so wildly different?
So then that's a great question, Sherry. I mean, the reality is there are some things where you need specialization by option, right? And not just in training. I think we may find the same thing with procedure development and that kind of stuff. So there are places where we have resident expertise where we're going to have to retain that. There are some places where you need local level knowledge, right? I mean, you need facility, local level knowledge that you can't be generalized for someplace else. So that all goes into that common pool. We are not trying to generalize all the support specialists. You're still going to have that level of expertise. The question I would have is, if you have things that require specialized knowledge, specialized experience, where are your opportunities to gain some advantage here, to get some efficiencies? Because I actually think there are places in those facilities where you might be able to combine resources. Think things like recurrent training, right? You don't need specialized knowledge for that. Why couldn't centers and terminals be able to combine their resources in order to deliver something like that? So there clearly are places where we're still going to need the specialized knowledge or the local level knowledge, and we're not trying to diminish that.
Dwayne McQuillan, Anchorage Center. So back to my gentleman over here at Oakland Center. So basically you answered the question with an answer, and that is that the Sierra Pacific District Office will be assisting Oakland Center. Lower level facilities, those specialists are not going to be able to help Oakland Center. Those specialists who are making less money at lower level facilities will not be able to assist them in the training department.
That is probably true.
Okay, so just put that on the plate. The other question I have to you, I actually task you with this from the standpoint of the bargaining unit, for which I worked airplanes 28.5 years doing it. Since you want to make us do more work with less, I task you today to increase the time on position. Please, because we're at about 4 hours nationwide.
I'm with you on that. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that for you. So when you say the people in the lower level facilities can't help support the center, that is true today. That may not be true in the end state. So that's one of the limitations that we have while we're working in combined services before we had the discussions with NACA.
Scott Campbell from Memphis. One thing we've looked at, we've been talking about this lately, is you were talking about specialized en route versus terminal. You're also talking about not being able to help lower, help up. We've started looking at our contractors, our admin contractors, how they can help up. And we've also started looking how centers en route already specialize. They have a QA department or a QC department. They have a training department. Most terminals, especially when you get below a level 9, do not. You have one person doing everything. So the specialized portion you enjoy in an en route environment is not enjoyed at smaller facilities. So it's something where maybe a little loss comes at the en route environment, but may be hugely gained in specialization at the smaller facilities. And that's something we've seen so far just in our first looking of the QC and then starting to be one of the training ones that we're hoping to benefit. And then the contractors, the instructors, there's a lot of use for them, I think, in this future role here that you can share the resources between, because I think they can go based on location, of course. We happen to be co-located with 3 facilities in one city, like a lot of places are. That'll be a shared resource, and I think that may be something that Oakland can benefit from.
Thank you for that, Scott. I appreciate that. And it points out to me, there is no cookie cutter approach to this. We are not giving, facilities, districts a list of, steps A through E, and magically you're going to have combined services. It's really a matter of sitting down in each one of those facilities, in each one of those districts, and jointly going through and looking at your available resources, looking where demands are, looking where opportunities are. And it's going to look different in every district. So I appreciate you walking us through what it looked like in Memphis. 5 minutes. Okay.
Here we go.
And as Bill as Bill alluded to, this is a journey, and it may not be one size fits all as we go forward. So it's about the conversations that currently exist and are going to happen. I know in your point to Oakland, I know yesterday I had conversations with both Melissa and Tanya. They met in Stockton, California, to talk about what this is going to look like and how they can go about making this happen. And the next week we're bringing all the TDMs and ZATMs, and we're actually including Albuquerque Center in with our discussion next week, talking about how this is going to play out and to move forward. So it's all about the conversation and the dialogue that we have, and the fact that we have this opportunity over the course of the next year plus to get to this point, and so that when we roll over in October, we're there. That's what it's about. So as you encounter these discussions or encounter these areas, that's where the conversations. I know as DDOs, and we're starting with the QC starting this week here, actually this week, we're starting weekly telcons in the Western service area about the QC. What successes are people having? What struggles are they having in this? That will continue to roll in the training environment as we move through. So this isn't like I get this briefing today and it's all going to go away, or this is the only conversation I'm going to have. We are going to have the constant conversations for the next 14 months as we transition through this and complete interaction, and we'll see how we can make it work. And as Bill said, it's not a reduction, and so we're not saying we're going to reduce the other than controller workforce or change that. We're just reallocating those resources. And having been a district manager coming out of the the Mid-America District, where I was allocated 0 support managers to run 13 FAA facilities and 27 contract facilities. This is a blessing, in terms of that, to try to get those resources and find a way to do that, because just didn't know. You were reaching into front lines and taking them out of the operations, and ATMs doing a lot of collateral duties. So this is an opportunity to try to reassess. So thank you for coming down, Bill.
Very good. Well, thank you all. This is going to be an interesting journey, and we're just sort of beginning it now. And I look forward to working with all of you. If you have any questions, we do have a KSN site, and I will leave that so everybody can have that. And you certainly call me or talk to the people who are in the districts who are currently working in QC stuff now. So thank you, everybody.
Okay. How's everybody doing? I see some long faces. Are you all as tired as I am? Oh, we got hours to go then. All right. Do we need a quick break before we close? 3 or 4 minutes. Bio break, be back at 35. How about that? 35?
All right, everybody, come on back. We're going to get started for the recap.
Okay, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Sean Corbett, we see you. Come on in. Sean, we still see you. There you go. Come on in. All right, so it's been a long day. It started about 7 in the morning. We got some networking in. Did everybody get their picture taken? I don't think we got the people in the virtual community's pictures taken, but everybody that's here in our studio audience, we have got pictures up on the wall. And so thank you for that, because as we talked about this morning in the opening with Margaret Heffernan, the importance of leveraging social capital is about first knowing each other and building trust and building friendship. And so I can clearly say from the noise level and the level of interaction and comfort from 7 o'clock this morning until where we are right now at 4:35 is awesome. And so I think that's been a big success. And I'm happy about that. We handed out note cards at the lunch break. We made some adjustments. We got feedback. There was a little noise in the back. We got feedback around questions. We got feedback about not distributing the strategy and asking you to work on it. And so those are all things that we'll take, and we say thank you to you for. And also, Christy just got a text message in from Terry Biggio. And are you, she's still busy. Are you ready, or are you? So, Christy, I guess Terry texted in.
Yeah, so apparently Terry, anybody in the room know who Terry is?
Okay, so for people that might not know, because we want, just like we've been defining acronyms so we create shared understanding, Terry Biggio is the Vice President of Safety and Technical Training, and he's my boss. So.
And so he's at a 2-day meeting, and apparently he's been checking out the live feed when he has a chance. So y'all may not have seen him, but everybody wave at the camera just in case he's watching right now and say, "Hi, Terry."
Hey, Terry.
So Terry said, it's really long. I apologize.
He's long-winded. He's a chatty fellow.
Is. He really needs a speechwriter. Sorry. Sorry, Terry. Anybody need to hire a comms person? I'm like, oh, crap. Okay, so I'm sorry I wasn't able to join you in Oklahoma City today and tomorrow for the training summit. Please know these aren't just words. I'm currently at a 2-day offsite with joint collaboration leadership meeting with ATO and NACA. We made a commitment 3 years ago when we started having these collaboration meetings that absent an emergency or special circumstance, we would do everything in our power to commit to this gathering. I hope you understand. One of the things I love about our labor management gatherings is the opportunity to not only carry the baton for training. My voice is shaking, I don't know why, sorry. He didn't say that. But to bring back their feedback to our teams as we try to continually improve, so I'll carry that water. I've known for a long time that we can head off a long list of issues if we invest in our training program. This summit is one of those investments. Speaking with one voice is key to our national success, which is a huge challenge with 315 facilities. Having you come together to collaborate and share your insights and ideas with each other is a great start, but it's only a start. Training isn't something that we can fix with one meeting, and there isn't one magic bullet. We need your help now, and we need your help for months and years to come. Thank you for being here this week, and thank you for making that commitment to training. Thanks for all you do. Again, sorry I couldn't be in 2 places at once, but I have all the faith in the world in Abby and her leadership and her ability to drive our strategic vision for training. Thank you so much, Terry Biggio. Everybody say hi, Terry. Terry, bye, Terry.
Hi, Terry. Bye, Terry. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, so there's that. Let's see. So who's been playing with the toys? Come on, come on. So we saw lots of slinkies. I know that I have one of the ones that's like a little animal that's kind of fuzzy. It's so relaxing to kind of hold on to. I love it. So we should do this back at the ranch too. Carl, recap?
I think we had a pretty good day today. We learned about some of the tools that we're trying to bring on board in order to help our training community, help all of you build a better product. We learned about the learning content management system, right? We learned about our little AJI2 strategy that under the tutelage of Abby we are moving forward on. And you need to know that that is a living document. Every 6 months we are committed to updating that. And it will not get stagnant. It will not be stale. We will continue to move it forward. And as we bring new tools and technologies on board, you will see changes to that. So we are committed to that. That is actually branching out from AGI2 to AJI as a whole. So you will see, if you pay attention, you will see things coming on board for all of safety and technical training. So we all have the same strategy. We've also been working with the Academy in collaboration and to ensure that our strategies line up. So there are some changes coming. Good things happened today here. There was some good discussions with regard to the GM restructuring. What else did we have? Commercial space and UAS.
Who learned something new in that briefing? There's a lot to do there, right? And I think as a training community, there's a lot that we can help them with. I know we were asked, and I know Carl was part of this conversations, we were asked if we give you some resources, okay, it was money, what can you do to help familiarize people in the next year with UAS, particularly because UAS is right now. And so thinking about that, I'd like for, as we go and do karaoke, or it might be scarioke if I'm singing, to think about what we as a learning community can do to resource our colleagues with what they need to be successful. I mean, we're all going to be learning together on this because this is new. I mean, these are new entrants. It's disruptive. And then we also talked about the controller training contract and how it works and how it's going to look in the future as we look at combining districts.
And the contracts, such as the CTC contracts, with the ability to utilize the innovation funding that is available there in order to take us on that leap that we need to make. We've learned briefly about the Center of Excellence.
And I guess that's to kind of end the day with where we started. What we talked about this morning was the fact that this is the first time that we're together in a long time. And the commitment that I pledged to you, and I know I can speak for the whole leadership team and the Academy team, is that this is the start of a beautiful relationship. I'll quote Casablanca. I'm a movie buff. So what I'd like to also ask us to do this evening is think about how we want to interact monthly with each other. Is that a webinar? I like a webinar better than I do a telecon because it's a way to be engaged. It's more visual. You can interact. We can put a chat room in with it. And then I also was thinking about, would it be more effective instead of just having a telecon where we go, hey, what you got? Oh, nothing. That's becomes more like a list, that we do topical discussions so that you can decide, is this something that I'm passionate about, or can I find a colleague that's going to be more engaged on this particular topic than I am because I've got energy elsewhere? And so as we learn together, let's think about how we can really lift this and be as effective and efficient as possible. That homework assignment at lunch, seriously, I really want to honor that commitment to help each and every one of you that's in the training community with a playbook, right? Wouldn't it be nice to have a desk guide and service center points of contact for training? We need your help. Earlier, before lunch, we asked everybody if they would do I wish I knew the day I started about ... I have a little starter list, but I bet from all the questions that you handle, you've got some great thoughts. And Barbara, I bet you and your team also have some great thoughts. And Sean, I bet you and your team have some great thoughts as well. So, and the people that have been in those shoes and go, gosh, I wish I would have had this playbook. Think about what those things are, because wouldn't it be nice to hand this off to our successors? Who can retire in the next 3 years? Sherry, we know you are. Okay, so that's more turnover and more change. And so let's resource our successors to be amazing.
Talk about tomorrow?
Yeah, let's talk about tomorrow. But who's coming to karaoke? I'm singing. It's that might. Never mind. I'm not singing. Who's coming to karaoke? Okay.
So let's get ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to start off with a bang. We have been lucky enough to put together the Joint Order 3120.4 Technical Training for Air Traffic Work Group. They are looking at the revision of the 3120.4. They are going to be here for a panel in the morning, and along with them is going to be a member of SUPCOM's training team. That is, they've been spending today, I believe, over at the Academy talking about FLM certification.
What's an FLM?
Frontline Manager.
Thank you.
Professional certification, right? So they have been talking about the strategies and the proposals that SUPCOM has in reference to putting that into the 3120.4. They are going to be our first panel of the day tomorrow. And then immediately following them, we're going to have an information sharing panel with the service area training coordinators. And we are setting the tone right now to ensure that we all understand that is what that is. It is an informational sharing session. We acknowledge that things are different in the way we process things in the Western, Central, and Eastern service areas. So we're going to share. Just like we can share under the Air Traffic Services GM realignment, and they're going to have to learn from one another, terminal and en route, and grab the goodies from each group and share them with one another in order to streamline things. We're going to have that same type of conversation tomorrow with our second panel. So these are some great ways to start the day. Make sure you don't drink too much coffee, because our panel members are very concerned with how that could go. So, but I know that you all will bring great questions, and if you'd like to put questions in our box out on the welcome table, there is a box there for those work groups to, if you have any other questions, you can also text them. Cool. So tomorrow's going to be a good day.
In the afternoon, well, and even in the morning, we also have JB from Management Services to talk about the new hire selection and placement. I know this morning there was lots of energy and some side discussions and some questions about that. So we'll have him here, and I think members of his team will also be available to assist in that. So I think that's going to be a lively discussion. Then we're going to put Mike and Finley through the gauntlet as they talk about the controller workforce plan for 2017 and how that gets made. And I'm sure that you'll have lots of questions about how they forecast and predict and probably feedback to crowdsource them as part of our extended family. Next, we'll talk about air traffic training, terminal basic radar, and specialized courses. This is your opportunity to put Carl, Jimmy Doskow, and Wayne Coley through lots of questions. So giddy up, guys, and that's my challenge to y'all. Give them lots of questions. And then at the end of the day, we have the lovely Dr. Dana Broach. Now, you're lovely. You're lovely and very entertaining. And he's going to talk about what an important component he is of our community in helping us with selection, with training standards, with how we get better. And so I'm really excited and grateful for the research that Dana has done for us for decades. It's going to be fun to talk to him. So before we go, we put more index cards on the table in front of you because we took your feedback, because we are believing in iteration, collaboration, and transparency. So if you could give your feedback on the cards again, thinking about what do we do right, what needs a tweak, what do we miss from this afternoon session so we can keep learning together and make incremental improvements even as early as tomorrow morning, but take it for our playbook for the next time that we get together. Any final questions before we go nosh, and then reconvene for a joyous song. Any questions? Anybody? So a special shout out to our technical team. Can we give them a round of applause? All right. Thank you so much for taking the time out of summer when you have competing priorities and huge amount of workloads back in your offices to come and pause and join together in this community, because we need your help, and we're just grateful to have you here. So have a good evening, and I hope to see you all in the lounge in joyous noise.